आवाज नहीं आ रही सर।
Your microphone is on.
Wait for 2-3 minutes. We'll start.
Control D. Your microphone is on.
हेलो सर, क्या हम स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं क्या? 10 मिनट हो गए ऑलरेडी।
Yes, you are going to start very soon. Just a minute. You are going to start.
Bandana Sadhu says in chat, do anyone have ID?
Possible again.
Such as Nita Outre says in chat, good afternoon, sir, person with golden. Aditya Parida has raised a hand. The sheet of Canvas says in chat colon Montana Jai. Op second year mind the sack those are courses keys on exam form. Canvas says in chat colon anyone from MSW. Evan Mogan the sack Vikari says in chat colon anyone from MSO. Ajit Kumar Magarama says in chat colon hi everyone. Aditya Parida work as long as the raised hand. PM Canvas we need outre says in chat colon yes me. Agro says in chat colon Zoel. Vincent Almadera says in chat colon MSO. Captain says in chat colon zone 2024-26 session. Saurabh Islami says in says in chat colon anyone have any idea. Aditya Parida, Saurabh Islami, and one more of raised hands. Aditya Parida and Saurabh Islami.
Kindly put your mic in the mute mode, all of you. Either mic को mute करो तो you will start our program.
And Anna Sadhu says in chat colon Matt Diddu.
Today's esteemed resource person N. Anwaram ji, my
For the problem of
colleagues, Dr. S.K. Panigrahi, Additional Director Sir,
the
Dr. Prabhat Kumar Khanna,
URC group manager was added to the
Director Sir, colleagues from the regional center and from across the study centers in the state, colleagues from other regional centers, my esteemed learners and dearest participants. Very good afternoon to all of you. Anavaram sir, welcome, namaskar. Today it's a matter of delight for us, it's a matter of privilege for us that we have with us distinguished sociologist N. Anavaram sir
Classroom URC group manager
to
was
elaborate on the issues of
Classroom
social policy in India, law, state and disability.
सॉरी सर कोई अनवांटेड साउंड आ रहा है सर आप कुछ बोल रहे हैं और कुछ दूसरा एरिया से साउंड आ रहा है
Okay. So I request all of you to kindly mute yourselves except the speaker, that is me in this case. All participants will be given the opportunity to put their viewpoints after the end of the webinar. So for the time being, please be good listeners, have patience, and we will certainly give you the space to elaborate your views. So till then, please bear with us. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, as we know, India is a welfare state, and that it is a welfare state is enshrined in the directive states of principal policy, the directive principles of the state policy, which these are the guidelines which are not mandatory upon the state, but these are the cornerstone of assessing the efficacy of governance of the country. So that is why we call it a welfare state, and we have certain duties as a state, as a responsible citizens of this country towards the disadvantaged persons of the society. And among the disadvantaged, the most disadvantaged are the people with special needs, those who are challenged in terms of vision, challenged in terms of muscular flexibility, challenged in terms of physical mobility, challenged in terms of hearing and speech. So there is a vast spectrum of challenges that people with special needs face in our society. So as a state, the government has a duty to them. As responsible citizens, we all have a duty to them. So that is possible, but by the synchronous activities of the civil society, of the state, and the citizens. So today we have got the opportunity to look at the issue, and to deliberate on this, we have with us Dr. N. Anavaram, Assistant Professor of Sociology in Central University of Hyderabad with us. Sir, it's a privilege to have you with us, and we welcome you. And we are eagerly waiting to listen to you on the theme social policy in India, law, state, and disability. So I request my senior colleague, Dr. S.K. Panigrahi sir, Additional Director, to kindly welcome our research person, welcome our participants, and give his address. Thank you, sir. Panigrahi sir, over to you.
Control D. Your microphone is on.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar to all of you. So, on behalf of Regional Center Bhubaneswar, on behalf of Indira Gandhi National Open University, I welcome
That is
today's resource person, Anna Madam, sir. I mean, undoubtedly, he is also one of the visually impaired person. We feel proud for sir
that was reason.
because out of all problems, so he is one of the leading personality in our country. So he is serving as an assistant professor in Central University, Hyderabad. I'm really extremely happy to you, sir. Out of your busy schedule, we received our invitation, and definitely our learner will benefit from today's
That is that.
talk. And today's topic: social policy in India, law, state, and disability. Disability term, we feel that, and our society, our community, so it's a derivative kind of words, but I can tell you one thing, dear learners and today's participants who are present today. In my sense, and what I understood,
With that.
each and every individual, in one hand, in other, we all are disabled. I'm not telling that we are disabled in which way. I can justify that because we do feel that those persons are normal. They feel that if somebody is disabled or somebody is handicapped or somebody is deformed, we do feel, I mean, it's like a bichara because they are unable to perform any kind of things in today's society, or they are not come to the mainstream to our society. So in that way, what's our thought process, which way you are thinking is not exactly that. Because why I told everybody is disabled, because
That was me. Okay.
somebody is not or unable to speak or listen or cannot see. So whatever the categories are there, if one normal person can speak very nicely, and we will send to you to any country where you can understand that language, or we can send to any other state where you can understood that language. So in that case also you are handicapped one way or the other. You cannot communicate with the peoples, and in that way also you are handicapped. That doesn't mean
As a chat.
you are handicapped, but it is a kind of mindset. So the disability term itself, it's a perception, which way you are going to think. So if our mind setup, our understanding, our thought process, if you can change, then whole scenario can change in our country. So if one handicapped person is going to get the higher education, And whatever the policy government of India or our state government is going to give the benefit to our handicapped persons, it's not so easy. It's very difficult to implement our law, our policy, what are the public, policy we are going to implement and what are the law we are going to form. Directly or indirectly, the benefit is reaching to our person. It's not so easy. So I don't want to take much time on that because we are eagerly waiting for our expert to listen. About the today's topic and we all should friendly towards our disabled peoples, our disabled learners, and our disabled community. If we can extend our hand to our society peoples, then definitely they can also come to the mainstream, because our whole idea, our whole strength and whole thought process is that how these peoples, how this person can also come to the mainstream of our state and society, and they can also perform which way a normal person can perform, and they can come and do same kind of work which work we are going to do and we are performing in our society. So with these words, I welcome you, sir, on behalf of the Regional Center of Bhubaneswar, on behalf of my senior director, Dr. Manoj Kumar Das. I welcome you, sir, for today's webinar. So thank you very much, sir, for your acceptance and invitation. Thank you, and over to Bimal, sir.
Thank you very much, Santosh sir. It's a great privilege at the outset to the People's University, Indira Gandhi National Open University, Bhubaneswar region, additional director, perhaps our very dearest senior in my JNU days.
Anavaram sir, wait for a minute. Over to Bimal, sir.
Oh, sorry.
So, thank you, Anavaram sir. Thank you, Santosh sir. May I now request my colleague, Dr. Prabhat Kumar Jana, Deputy Director, to kindly give a brief introduction of our today's eminent research person. Prabhat sir, please.
Control D, your microphone is on.
You are not audible, Professor.
Prabhat sir, we are unable to hear you.
Audible, sir.
Subpasses like Bandana Satin. Subpasses.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah, you are audible.
Now audible. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon to everybody. Esteemed Senior Regional Director Dr. Esteemed Senior Regional Director Dr. M.K. Das sir, respected Additional Director Dr. S.K. Panigare sir, respected Dr. B.C. Nanda sir, Deputy Director, respected other dignitaries, respected resource person, Sri Annamanana sir, other dignitaries and dear friends. So today we are very much happy to listen to a reputed speaker. I think most of the learners, they may be knowing him. And she is a reputed, she has very much reputation towards the disability field. She teaches in the Department of Sociology. Mr. Annavaram has been working as a research scientist, and he has very much research interest in sociology of India, sociology of education, social stratification, sociology of law and state policy. And he is currently an expert member in the Braille Council of India under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. He was a member in the advisory committee to draft the Telangana rights of persons with the disability rules. we submitted a final draft to the state government. He was invited as an expert member in a committee constituted to propose Andhra Pradesh rights to persons with disabilities. He takes an active part as an expert member in a committee constituted to propose Andhra Pradesh rights to persons with disability. He takes an active part in civil society movement on disability rights, advises various non-government organizations, and sits as an advisor on various boards of different units. He is a regular invitee on Radio Udyan, the first online radio station to broadcast on the issues of disabilities in South Asia. So it's a very good achievement, and very few people there they took part in this program, and he is one of them. So we are very much thankful to him also. And he is invited on a regular basis by the states of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh to advise on matters of social welfare, disability policies, and transgender rights. You are the recipient of Anya Civilian Award presented jointly by Deaf Risk and the Department of Women, Children and Disabled and Senior Citizens Welfare, Andhra Pradesh. He is conferred with the Role Model Award twice in 2016 and 2018 by the Department of Welfare of Differently Able, Senior Citizen and Transgender Government of Andhra Pradesh. So we are very much fortunate to listen to him, and we are very much thankful to him for accepting our invitation, because we all are keen to listen to him, and he has very good expertise on the disability field, and we are interested to listen to him, and I think all our learners will gain such knowledge on the disability field. So we are very much thankful to you, sir, and once again I welcome you to this online webinar. Thank you, sir, and over to you, sir.
Thank
Hemant
you.
sir, over to you.
Thank you, Prabhat sir, for your elaborate introduction. And may I now request our research person of the day, Dr. Anavaram sir, to kindly uh, give his deliberation on social policy in India, law, state, and disability. Thank you, Anavaram sir, and over to you.
Thank you very much, the additional director, deputy director, other officials from IGNOU, dear colleagues joining from other places in Odisha as part of for this webinar. I'm really delighted to be here. Thank you very much for those generous words of introduction. It's too long an introduction. But anyway, thank you very much. And I'm particularly thankful to the additional director, who would have been a great friend, and also our senior at JNU. It's I wish I would have been there personally and physically, but maybe some other time. But thank you very much. And I also want to welcome all the participants from different parts of the state. It looks like it's a great crowd. Thank you very much. We'll dive into the theme. If I can, if I'm allowed to share my PowerPoint, I'd like to.
Yes, sir. Please
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay. Give me 1 minute. I'll just share my.
withdraw କରିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ ଆମର representation ଟା ସାର୍
Yeah, something is already share it. If you withdraw it, I can share it. Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not getting the option to. Oh yeah, now I got it. Yeah. Give me a minute. Okay. Are you able to see it now? I believe yes. Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about social policy in India, state law and disability. I'll probably take another half an hour or maybe 40 minutes. Let me begin by asking you to think, um, when India was getting independence, what was our real preference? As the inaugural remarks have already indicated, we were in a very, very different situation in 1947. For example, Nehru and Gandhi were debating whether India should live in villages or we should have whether we should live in urban areas. Um, Gandhi said we should live in villages, but Nehru said no. Uh, Villages are backward, den of ignorance. We should not live in villages. We should urbanize India. We should live in cities. The cities are civilizations. Um, um, but uh, I don't know whether it is thankfully or otherwise, regrettably, Gandhi couldn't live to see India as a republic. As all of us know, Gandhi died in a very tragic, um, I don't know, call it shooting, tragic accident in 1948. That was almost 2 years before India became republic. So Nehru was left to make a decision, to take a decision about India, but it doesn't mean that he had a free hand. There are many people influencing, including Gandhians, about India, the shape of India's development. Whether India should become one of the important questions after 1950 was whether India should be a fully capitalistic country or should we take a socialist path. Russia was a big attraction at that point of time. Everybody was real eagerly waiting once British go out, whether India would actually become a socialist country like Russia or whether it would really become a capitalist country like America. We needed both. India needed both Russia and America. We could not take a stand at that. It was not easy for us to take a stand and say we will be in the in American bloc or Soviet bloc. That was not so easy because we really needed so many things, including food grains. We needed arms. We needed tractors for agriculture. So there are things that were not available with America. Chosen. We have chosen what we now call mixed economy. We have chosen a mixed economy, meaning we were slow to marketize fully, but we would travel towards the capitalism slowly, but at the same time, state would also play an important role. That's exactly where the welfareism, the idea of welfare, comes into uh, play, because if you are a Soviet kind of a socialist country, then welfare is an integral part. But if you are a purely capitalist country, welfare, no, there is no place for welfare. We cannot do the both. So India became a market economy. We chose to become a capitalist development, but also at the same time remain welfare. Behind your doors, uh, one of the biggest projects of that development vision in 1950, for example, was the Bakranangal project. So Bakranangal was not built by Tata, least Reliance. Reliance anyway was not born at the time. Bakranangal was built by the government. And like that, there were many projects that Indian state was building, but capitalists were also allowed to do their business freely, but they were doing businesses with what we generally call short duration um, uh, projects. But long gestation projects the state was actually doing. This is a very new experiment in the world economies. Nobody before actually did that. The states were either monarchic or capitalist in one hand, or you are a Soviet, completely socialist country dominated by the state. But India took a very different path altogether as a mixed economy. Of course, that continued till 1991. In 1991, we became purely liberal state. So that was at the development level. I want you to keep this in mind. I will come back to it. Why it is important for a discussion on disability. Keep that in mind, because disability is not an isolated issue. Disability is an important issue, developmental issue. I really want to flag that idea, and it is an important part of the social policy. Indian Constitution does not mention the word disability as a category. I am very particular to say that because, interestingly, there is a word disability in the Indian Constitution. Political science students would know well. I don't know if you remember it. We don't these days read much. The word disability in the Indian Constitution used as part of the directive principles of the state policy, saying that the state should strive to remove all social disabilities. That is the word used in the directive principles of the state policy in the Indian Constitution. So the disability is used, but the disability had a very completely different meaning. It is in the context of social disabilities. So people with disabilities in that sense were not directly part of the Indian Constitution. But we have Article 14. If you really want to put people with disabilities in the Indian Constitution, where do we really put? Article 14 says what? All of us know. I think at least two articles all of us should definitely know is Article 14 and Article 21. Article 14 says all are equal before law. All people are equal before law. If that is the case, people with disabilities, whatever, howsoever they are defined, are also part of that people, and they have the equal right to equality promised in the Indian Constitution. I also want you to keep this in mind. We'll come back to these things. We'll come back to development. We'll come back to Article 14. Now let me go back little before independence. Where does the disability really begin? Are we talking about disability now? People with disabilities, people with blindness, people with locomotor disabilities. Of course, there are people with intellectual disabilities, people with um, uh, uh, transgender issues. Now, where do we really begin? Were people with disabilities treated equally before India got independence? What was their position? If you really want to think very seriously about that question, I want you to go back to epics. Okay? This is always the case with any society. What are our epics? If somebody can write it on a chat, what are our epics? If somebody can quickly put it in a chart, somebody want to say where the epics are? Do we have epics? What are our epics? No. So we have two books which are our epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So Mahabharata and Ramayana, if you very carefully look at it, revolve around disability characters. Who wrote Ramayana? Someone was saying in the recent past that Valmiki wrote an Ramayana. Hanuman wrote Ramayana. Sorry, I don't know if that is the case. What we know from history is Ramayana was written by Maharishi Valmiki. Yeah.
Maharishi Valmiki.
Maharishi Valmiki. we don't know whether Maharishi Valmiki was a blind right from the beginning. We don't know that. But what we know for sure was that he was blind when Sita met him. It was after Sita met him that he came to know many details about what was really happening, and then put all that uh, narrative and wrote Ramayana. So when Mahabharata, when Valmiki wrote Ramayana, therefore he wrote it as a blind. That is also very interesting because across the history, some of these epics were written either by people with most of the time it is with uh, blindness. There is a coincidence or it's something else. I don't know. The reason why I'm saying this, you come down to 15th century. Who was writing the Paradise Lost? John Milton. So when John Milton was writing Paradise Lost, he lost his sight. He was blind. He was dictating it to his daughter. He was sighted in the beginning, but he lost his sight at the age of 40 or 45. Then he sat down and wrote the Paradise Lost. Tulsi Das was composing all these songs. He was blind. Apparently, even the author of the Homer was sighted, but when he was writing the Homer, which is the Greek epic, he was also struggling with his eyesight. Probably we don't know what epics have to do with blindness, but most of these were composed by people with blindness. So come back to Valmiki. Valmiki was writing this as a blind man. That does not make Ramayana in any way less significant. And go back to Mahabharata. Who is the real hero of Mahabharata? Of course, we all say Arjun, Bhim, Dharmraj. But who is the Mahapita of Mahabharata? The Mahapita of Mahabharata is, as we all know,
Bhishma, Pitamaha Bhishma.
but who is the father of the 100? It was Mahabharata is actually between the two kingdoms, and the biggest kingdom was by the Kauravas, right?
Kauravas.
The Kauravas' father was born blind.
Dhritarashtra.
Yes, Dhritarashtra was born blind. Probably Mahabharata would have been very different if Dhritarashtra were to be sighted, but it wasn't the case. And what many of us may not know is, at some point, Dhritarashtra had a chance to get his sight. Do you know who the Dhritarashtra's father was? Dhritarashtra's father was none other than the Vedavyas himself. Right? So Vedavyasa, apparently the author of Rigveda, going by what we know but now. So Vedavyasa, Dhritarashtra was the son of Vedavyas. So Vedavyasa comes to Dhritarashtra when the war was at its peak. And he tells him, "Dear son, I couldn't do anything for you, though I have all the powers. I have all the powers, I have the knowledge, but somehow you are born as a son against my will. So I never bothered about it to you so far. But here is a time, because your sons are fighting. If I were to be in your position as a father, I would have really wanted to see how my sons are fighting. Sorry for that I couldn't do anything so far, but here I am. Ask me, I will give you the sight. I want to give you the sight. I want you to see how your sons are fighting." Then Dhritarashtra says, "I'm sorry if I didn't have my sight so till date, I don't want to have it now." It's a very strong answer Dhritarashtra gives to Vedavyasa. And he further goes on to say, "So far I have managed this kingdom, seen all kinds of things happening under my nose. But by any chance, if my sons get defeated, I can't see this with my eyes. I'm sorry, Dad. Thank you so much for your offer, but I don't want to see, because we don't know. Even you don't know who is going to win. Therefore, I don't want to see with my eyes if my sons were to be defeated. That's exactly what happened. We know. So Dhritarashtra somehow made the choice at the peak of his life and remained blind. That does not in any way make Mahabharata a less significant epic. And you come down into the history, you have all kinds of people. Ekalavya, and coming down to all kinds of people we have with disabilities. Then Ashtra Maharishi, we have, but none of it makes, so somehow if you really want to think about our Hindu um, uh, civilization, disability has been an integral part of our life. We don't find anybody, you must have seen countless number of TV serials and stuff. We nowhere look at either Valmiki or Dhritarashtra or Ekalavya, anybody less significant because of their disability. Perhaps we take that as a very normal part of life. We don't see any ancient commentary criticizing Dhritarashtra on the basis of disability, on the basis of his blindness. There are many people who criticize Dhritarashtra for failing to keep his sons disciplined, for not following dharma, Raj dharma at some point. That's all right. But none of it is on the basis of his blindness, but on the basis of his uh, the behavior of the ruling behavior, right? So it's nothing to do with blindness. So that clearly tells us that disability has been an integral part of our life. There was no discrimination on the basis of that, and we'll be happy whosoever we are. They were playing their roles as kings, as advisors, as warriors, despite all, and of course the excellent Maharishis. So they're all disability then becomes an integral part of life. We see this across civilizations, Christianity, Islam, Greek civilization, across civilization. I'm not going into those examples. Otherwise, we would probably end up doing only civilizational history. Coming down to the modern age, somehow during the industrial phase, disability starts receiving stigma, a kind of a superstition, because in the modern age, during the 16th and 17th century European industrialization, who really needed was somebody who could work uh, as a factory worker with well-built body, operating machines, lifting up weights. They were the people who were considered economically productive. Somehow the definition of man, definition of human value starts changing from the 17th century onwards because of the industrial revolution. Because of the industry, the factories, who is more productive? The one who can work with four hands, two hands, two legs, you need three-dimensional sight to look around, all that stuff. Anyone who had anything less than that was treated as defunct. Different names to different of these things. Some societies call them invalid, some societies call them handicapped, some all kinds of things. It was okay. It was okay for the Europeans, and disabled were except the missionaries who somehow some private initiatives, some industries, some of them wanted them to learn letter or to become educated, but except that nothing much attention was paid. You come down to the Second World War. The real story of disability begins from the Second World War. What happened in the Second World War? The greatest tragedy of the 20th century, beginning from 1900, is that within a span of 4 decades, 40 years, just within a span of 40 years, we had 2 world wars. First and Second World Wars happened just within a span of 40 years. In fact, only 3 decades, not even 40 years, because the First World War begins roughly from 1912, and you have a Second World War beginning from 1939. So within a span of 3 decades, you have 2 world wars. Devastating. Never in the human history before you had such big wars in such a less span of time. There were wars, but there was always a very long gap between the wars, right? So nothing of this sort happened. Second World War was more devastating than the First World War. You literally had almost every country in the world, everybody in the world involved in the Second World War. Most importantly, two biggest militaries with all kinds of weaponry, because the Second World War, what makes the First and Second Wars, particularly Second World War, very significant also, is that you have the weaponry that was never seen before. The bomb, the atom bomb was used. There were guns, all kinds of things. One of the consequences was there are more casualties, serious casualties, than ever before, any war before. Both in Russia and the United States of America, people who entered the war, well built, absolutely able, 6 foot, just 18, 19, 20, 21 years old men, and of course some women, went back home crippled, blinded, psychologically disturbed. Not one or two, we're not talking about hundreds, it is in millions. Million meaning at least 40, 50 lakh people went back to the United States and Russia completely crippled. Many people lost their arms, people lost their legs, and some people, though physically well, but they were completely disturbed looking at what was happening in front of them. So by 1945, 1950, 47, the world was actually facing a very, very difficult problem. The reason was, if somebody is born blind or crippled, it is easy to say, okay, karma, you're born, what can we do? We'll try what we can, we'll give you the food, and because somebody is born blind or born disabled, they were made to somehow mm, uh, face all the kind of brunt. But here are the people who are not born disabled. They were sent into the war to protect their country, and suddenly they came back. You cannot treat them the way you treat uh, people congenitally disabled, people with congenital disabilities. No, and they started when people started calling them handicapped, calling them invalid, blind, this and that. These soldiers, young soldiers, started reacting. Said, "Why am I blind? Who made me blind? It is you who sent us into the war." The state then became a moral responsibility for the first time in the human civilization. For the first time, it became a moral responsibility for the state to uh, morally take responsibility for the welfare of these people. So you had the psychology, the idea of rehabilitation, psychological rehabilitation to begin with, comes into the idea in 1950s. We see a huge turnover of disability policy in Europe and United States of America in particular. Psychologists, and then some of those young men, and said, I will also have degrees. They also, some of them are lawyers, said, you cannot deny our right to be employed. We came back. Of course, the sight is lost, our hands are lost, but we are still good. We can work. Because previously, it was almost unimaginable for somebody like them to be appointed to different positions. But here is, for the first time, the state was facing a challenge. And slowly, the policies began. The National Federation of the Blind in the United States of America started playing a very important role. Most of them are war veterans. Very recently, I also happened to be in Europe and see how the war veterans in Germany and Austria started building memorials, collecting their own peers, most of them war veterans who came back disabled. They started their own museums, started preparing documentation. One of the world's most biggest documentation center is in Innsbruck, Austria, and we had the honor of being there as visitors. So, Disability Inclusive Documentation Center, started by a Jew army veteran. So there lots of things were happening there. So disability became an issue that state could no longer escape from. The state could no longer ignore. And the first question, interestingly, for disabled people at that point of time was, don't call us handicapped. Because the word handicapped means what? A cap in the hand. Who has a cap in the hand? The beggar, arm picker. So literally it meant handicapped. The many for several decades, even in India, we used to call people with disabilities as handicapped. So the first thing that these army veterans and all people with disabilities started protesting is about the nomenclature of the words. Yes, these are the disability nomenclatures. The movement started and started asking about this. So then the World Health Organization in 1979 constituted a committee, and they said impairment. But impairment actually is a medical model, meaning somebody is not able to see. It means it can be repaired. Whenever we say impaired, it means something is damaged, we can repair it. But all disabilities cannot be repaired. Therefore, they said, no, we are not happy with impairment. So handicapped is out, impaired is out. Then they came up with this idea called people with disabilities, not disabled people, but people with disabilities. This is a nomenclature, but disability movement per se is also very interesting because, as you can see here, right? So there's a war context, a lot of it. This is exactly the reason why. Yes, I was saying about. You can see this on the screen about the protest against handicapped. Now we slide back, perhaps jump a little further. So the disability nomenclatures, and slowly WHO in 1981 gave a report. Let's call it people with disabilities. So you have, for the first time in 1981, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution, I think 1337 or so. In December 1981, they declared as a decade of the disabled. United Nations Decade of the Disabled. The real paradigm shift in disability history begins in 1971. So 1981. Perhaps for women, it begins in 1971. From 1971 to 1980, it was called Decade of the Woman. From 1981 to 1992, it is called Decade of the Disabled. This is very important because even in India, this had a huge impact. India being one of the signatories of the resolution in 1981, we started implementing various policies, started receiving international aid and funding, started separate special schools. If you go to the different states, you would hear, ask them when was your special school started, except very old ones. You hear most of them saying it was in 1984, 85, 90, 91. The reason being that was all these initiatives were taken as part of the UN Decade of the Disabled, 1981 to 1992. In 1991, we have for the first time in India, we have something called Persons with Disabilities, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act. Very long name, 1995. We had that act in existence almost for little more than 20 years. 3% reservation, educational facilities, special education teachers, and all that happened. But before 1995, perhaps 1995 Act is not the first disability legislation. Before 1995, we have something called, which is IGNO very closely associated with, Rehabilitation Council of India Act 1992. So Rehabilitation of Council of India Act was meant to train and prepare special educators, which is now a big thing. In every state, you have special educators teaching in both special and inclusive schools. The starting was made in 1992, which is as part of NPE 1986, not NEP, NPE at that point of time, right? National Policy for Education 1986 is part of the NPE 1986. The RCI was started in 1992, along with many councils were started actually at the time. Nursing Council of India, Physiotherapists Council of India, so on and so forth. So RCI was one of that moment. So education was receiving a big boom, missing a big support. Moving on, we came down to 2006. After UN Decade of the Disabled 1981, the biggest move at the global stage was the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities 2006. The interesting part is India played a very pivotal role in this declaration. At the global level, there are three stages for any convention. First, you adopt a convention, you ratify it, then we prepare something called protocol, optional protocol. India has played a very active role in all the first two, at least, very active role while adopting the convention, and then also while ratifying the convention. Right? India was one of the first 5 ratifiers of the convention. So India then becomes a signatory and ratifier of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities 2006, which meant that we had then an obligation to bring about a special legislations for persons with disabilities in this country. So we had 1995 Act, but that was not a rights legislation. That was only welfare legislation. So in every part of that act, for example, you would find something like, this will be done, this facility will be provided insofar as within the means of the economic capacity of the state, meaning if there is a money, we will do this work. But that is not the right spirit, that is not the spirit of the rights. So therefore there was a need to change that act. The Indian government constituted a committee in 2010. We were all children at the time, so we were actually kids, students. We were playing some role, not so active, but we're part of this consultation process. But a lot of that was happening even back at JNU. There's somebody called the Bharat, who was playing a very important role at that point of time. Anyway, Karna, Mr. Karna is no longer here, but he was there at that point of time. They're all playing as part of the 5-year. I think this is the 11th 5-year plan. The act was shaping up, but it took more than what we all thought. We thought that India would enact a rights legislation for people with disabilities maybe in 2011, 12 on. It didn't happen. The act was the bill was tabled in the parliament in 2014, but it could not be passed. So you would come down to 2016. Persons with Disabilities Act, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act was passed in 2016, which is now in effect. And Persons with Disabilities Act, I'll come to that probably if I have time. How the act was passed in itself is a very interesting story. I'll come to that if there is a time. One of the things the act does, you must have read in the newspapers most of the time, the types of disability, the number of disability has gone up from 7 to 21. in 1995 Act, there were only 7 disabilities. But in 2016 Act, how many? There are 21 disabilities, 21 types of disability, threefold increase in the number of disabilities, because there are many disabilities that were not covered in 1995 Act. We identified all of them. There are 4 important things this is a very technical, but we want you to recognize this. Some of you are maybe a policy to do with the policymakers. Some of you must be educators. There are 4 kinds of nomenclatures, types of defining disability as per the RPWD Act. The first one is person with disability. Look at this definition, right? This is the definition for persons with disabilities. What does it say? Anybody who has all these barriers you see on the screen is considered a person with disability. You remember this. If you want, you take a screenshot. Then there is another definition. This is called person with benchmark disability. Anybody who has at least 40% disability and suffers from any kind of a challenge that is defined as specific disability as a specific disability in schedule is called person with benchmark disability. I wish I could put them both of them in the same screen, but if I do that, it would become very big. You would not be able to see it on your mobile devices. Therefore, I had to put it in 2 slides. Very interesting definitions on disability, because a lot of it we think that we know much about disability. Unless and until we know the law, it's very difficult. Who is the disabled? Who gets different concessions, reservations? This is disability, right? This is benchmark disability. What difference? What do you find any difference between the both? I want to stop here for 5 minutes. If somebody wants to say, what is the biggest difference between these 2 definitions? Person with disability and person with benchmark disability. Yeah, this is the definition of person with disability. If you want, you can have it. And then you have this one, person with benchmark disability. Yes. Does anybody want to say a comment about both? Is there a difference between the both? Yes. Does anyone want to have a comment on both person with disability and person with benchmark disability? Okay. So let me draw your attention. Look at this one very carefully. Person with disability who long-term physical, intellectual, sensory, environmental barriers. Who thinks, I'm just trying to put it in a very simple language, who thinks that he is not able to participate fully in society at par with others is a person with disability. So in this case, it is based on the barriers you face, and if you think that there are barriers that are disabling you to participate in the society at par with others, then you are a disabled. No one has to tell you that you are disabled. You decide that you are a person with disability because you are facing certain barriers. There could be cultural barriers, physical barriers, environmental barriers, attitudinal barriers, so on and so forth. There is no percentage. Nobody is certifying you, and you are the best judge. You are the judge of yourself. There is no certificate in this. But look at this. Person with benchmark disability, right? So this is this is a very technical one, because a person with benchmark disability is one who has not less than 40% of a disability. But which disability? Specified disability, meaning the government has already listed out 21 types of disability, and if your disability is one among them, and if you have at least 40% or more of that disability, and what more, it should be certified by a medical authority. So you need a certificate, you need a particular percentage of disability, and you need a particular specified disability. In the previous definition, you don't find, you don't need any disability, any specification, right? Here, no, a benchmark disability is the one which should have been included in the schedule to the act, defined by the government, certified by the doctor, to have been at least 40 or more percentage. I am saying this because suppose you have 30% blindness. What do you think? Will you be disabled? Will you be entitled to a reservation? If you have 30% disability, you have 35% blindness, let us suppose, or 35% locomotor disability. You can only be a person with disability, but you will not be a person with benchmark disability. Because for you to be a person with benchmark disability, you should be at least 40%. I had a very interesting case some time ago, before 2000, I think in 2014 or no, I think 2017. I had a very brilliant engineer. He was a chemical engineer, 97% college topper. He cleared the exam in DRDO as a DRDO executive engineer exam. He cleared the interview. He cleared the medical test. He cleared everything. There is one final test. It is called three-dimensional sight. So you stand, when you say three-dimensional sight, you stand. You should not move your eyes. Stand straight. But on all three sides, at the distance of 20 meters, they put some boards. You should be able to read all the boards on all three sides at a distance of 20 meters. This boy was able to read the board on the front, board on the left, but board on the right, he was not able to see. Three-dimensional sight. Because on the right side, he could see only 10 meters. He could not see 20 meters. Then when he failed the test, he was sent to the test. The medical doctors checked him and said 30% blindness. Now, if it is 30% blindness, he is not entitled for any reservation. At the same time, he is medically unfit as per the standards of DRDO. Then you can imagine what a legal definition can do for you. The reason why I'm bringing it for you, you may have very different kind of situation at any point. I know people who started losing their sight when they are in service. They go to the doctors certify them 35%. They come back, they don't have the protection under the RPWD Act because they are not persons with benchmark disabilities. So very peculiar. The legal definition is so important. All this was finally clarified, thankfully, to Justice Chandrachud in, I think, 2022 or 21. He wrote a 60-page judgment only on the definitions. Finally saying, even if a person does not have 40%, he should be given reasonable accommodations, not reservations and the stuff, but reasonable accommodations based on his disability as a person with disability, not as a person with benchmark disability, right? So that's so important. So you have this, interestingly, in the United Nations Convention, UNCRPD 2006, you don't have a definition called benchmark disability. They only had this definition, the first one. This is this one. This is part of the UNCRPD. This is, I think, Article 1. But this one is not there in USC. We have invented it. Literally, we invented for ourselves for the purposes of medical certification and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'll move on. There is also another category called persons with disabilities having high support needs. This is a category who really can't do anything on their own. There is a provision for guardianship, and the government is supposed to take care of them fully, right? These are people with high support needs. I said specified disabilities. I made a reference to it. These are 6 kinds of categories. Yeah, the schedule. That's what it says. There are these. Yeah, these are only categories. The specified disabilities were categorized under these 6 heads. Actually, 5 heads. But government can add any disability at any point of time to the act, and then it can then begin to be started recognized as a person with disability. We will not go into the other details of the act. The act has a state commissioner. The act has a central chief commissioner for persons with disabilities. There is section 92, which is very important. All of you should know. There are offenses. There are punishable offenses if anyone, section 92, anyone violates the provisions in section 92. Somebody calls a person with disability using a derogatory word, or somebody actually violates their privacy, dignity in any manner, either through words or actions, even through the signs, right, by gestures. All that is an offense, punishable offense under the RPWD Act 2016. After 1989, the Atrocities Act, the next powerful provision you will find is in the RPWD Act 2016. There are many cases coming up before the High Court and Supreme Courts. This is not to say that we should fear the law, therefore we should respect people with disabilities. No, that won't take us too long. But this is also to say that one cannot be reckless when it comes to disability. Now there is a punishable offense. Section 89 to 94, a whole section, a whole chapter on offenses against people with disabilities. Section 84 and 85 also have a provision for special courts, specially designated magisterial courts, what we call session courts. Every state now has session courts to try the cases under RPWD Act 2016. So that to see that the justice is done at a speedy justice provision. So every establishment is supposed to have an equal opportunity policy for persons with disabilities, section 20 and so on and so forth. Children with disabilities have a right to compulsory education up to the age of 18 years. Appropriate age-based education up to the age of 18. It means actually up to the graduation, a person with disability should have a provision for free education. Under the RTE in 2009, what is the compulsory, free and compulsory education? Only up to the age of 14, right? Not beyond. But for people with disabilities, it is up to the age of 18. So you have all kinds of these provisions, and the accessibility for sections 40 to 44 are the accessibility provisions. Very recently, the Supreme Court, 3-bench of the Supreme Court gave a very astounding judgment that accessibility should be done. The next 3-4 months, the government should formulate guidelines. The government of India is now actually in the process of coming up with those guidelines. Once the guidelines come, state and central governments, everybody have to make their um, buildings, roads, vehicles, even daily implements accessible. Uh, Now, I'll come to the end. How do all these actually matter to disability? How do they really matter for India as a democracy? Let me tell you two anecdotes, and then we will close. Maybe another 5 minutes. In 1995, the government of India, I don't know, maybe the older generation know. Uh, from 1991 to 1995, we had for the first and last time a government that never had a majority in the parliament, right? PV Narasimha Rao's government. Literally, it neither had coalition partners nor had a full majority in the parliament. Very peculiar. Generally, when a party doesn't have a full majority in the parliament, it brings all other parties as a coalition. There is no coalition. It was not a UPA. It is not an NDA. None of them were born yet. It was a Congress, but did not have any majority. Because we already had elections from 1989 to 91, we had elections thrice, 3 times. Probably people were very bored of elections. And most importantly, our financial situation was so bad, nobody dared going for a fourth election. Okay, so nobody brought about no confidence motion against the Congress government at that time. So Parliament really survived. It is a miracle, democratic miracle. A minority party, a party with no majority in the Parliament, being able to survive for 5 years. PV Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister. Atal Bihari Vajpayee Sahab was the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha. It was a very, very historical. Now, 95, they prepared a bill. The December 1995 was a very crucial Parliament session because after that the elections were going to come. 96, beginning of the 96, the elections were going to come. The BJP was almost it's adamant that nothing will happen. They said something else. There were many scams happened. Many things that they wanted the PV Narasimha Rao government to do, but they were doing. They said no, we will not do it. Therefore, the many bills which Congress thought were very crucial, they wanted to pass, but they could not pass without opposition supporting them because these people did not have full majority. Literally, the whole parliament was washed off, and PWD Act, the Persons with Disabilities Act 1995, was also one among those bills. This is a scenario, very interesting scenario. 1995, if you cannot pass this bill in 1995, you don't know whether it would ever be passed at all. We don't know what was going to happen after this. Who is going to come into the power? Will they have a full majority or not? So there's somebody, there is a group, the Disability Rights Group. One among in that group was a lady called Anuradha Mohit. And she went to PV Narasimha Rao. PV Narasimha Rao said, okay, we want to pass it, but Vajpayee साहब ने मदद नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम क्या कर सकते हैं? Then Anuradha Mohit also went as a last resort to Atal Bihari Vajpayee साहब. Said, sir, ये है, आप थोड़ा मदद दे दीजिए. Then शहरी से कहा था, अटल बिहारी साहब ने कहा, सी हम तैयार हैं, लेकिन हम कोई बिल को तैयार सपोर्ट नहीं करेंगे, करने के लिए हम ये बैठे हैं, सिर्फ पार्लियामेंट जाएंगे, लेकिन किसी बिल को हम, क्योंकि आपके लिए तो हमारा मदद है, लेकिन हम आएंगे, हम लाएंगे. दैट वाज हिज आंसर. आप थोड़ा वेट कर लीजिए, हम आएंगे, इंतजार कर लीजिए, हम आएंगे, ये बिल लाएंगे. Then Anuradha Mohit said something very interesting. This we know from first hand. She said, साहब अगर मेरी जैसी बेटी आपको होती तो आप क्या कर सकते थे इस समय पे? अब यही जवाब होता आपका. Then we heard Atal Bihari Vajpayee had tears in his eyes when Anuradha said this, and he said, ठीक है, हम सिर्फ एक ही बात पे पार्लियामेंट आएंगे, हम आएंगे, बैठेंगे, आपका बिल आना है टेबल पे, तब हम यहाँ करेंगे और सिर्फ बाहर आ जाएंगे. अगर ये agreement सही है तो हम आएंगे आपका बिल पास करेंगे. Then the group comes back to P.V. Narasimha Rao and tells this. Very interestingly, they wanted some record that this parliament should not go on record to say no bill has been passed. So they were happy at least that one bill will be passed. Say they brought the bill, and the BJP comes in, they introduced the bill, they said ha, and well, if you go back to the records of the parliament, you will find no discussion whatsoever on that bill. The bill was passed. That's how 1995 Act, Persons with Disabilities 1995 Act comes into, was enacted. Thankfully, good that it happened. If it were not happened in 95, we will probably would have to wait till 2000, because till 2000 we did not have any full. Every government was coming, going down and coming, and 3 times it happened. You would be surprised to know almost the same kahani, the same story gets rehearsed in December 2016. Again, a surprise to me. I don't know what you really call it. 2016, हम पता नहीं सब कितने लोगों को आप याद है. 2016, what was the biggest thing? Somebody wants to say, please say it. What was the biggest thing in 2016? You can open your mic and say. The biggest development in 2016. 2016 तो इतना दूर नहीं है ना, 10 साल से पहले है. No? Somebody want to write it in the chat box? I can give you 20 seconds.
RPWD Act 2016.
उसके अलावा I mean ब्रॉड लेवल पे क्या हो रहा है? आधार बिल नहीं है भाई, आधार बिल उसके बाद आया था. Oh yeah, Aadhaar bill is 2017, right? Aadhaar bill came in 2017. Okay, so let me tell you the secret. 2016 November, you had a demonetization, right? I don't know how can you forget your demonetization, everybody. And by December 2000, now the the parliament begins in November, at the end of November, and the NDA government had a full majority in Lok Sabha, but no majority in Rajya Sabha. So no bill except the finance bill could be passed without both the houses passing it. There was no way that NDA would actually be able to pass any bill in Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha, they did not have the numbers. The numbers were very low. The BJP numbers were very low. So they passed only the something finance bill, some amendments to the finance bill, because for finance bill, it is enough for Lok Sabha to pass it. If Rajya Sabha doesn't pass it but send it back and the Lok Sabha passes it, it is enough. That's how even the Aadhaar bill controversy also comes, because the same gets repeated in 2017 also. Aadhaar bill, because Aadhaar, to pass the Aadhaar bill, they passed it as a money bill. The whole thing you are now finding in the courts. Unfortunately, I can't go there. Whether the Lok Sabha speaker can decide what is a money bill, or can you pass something like Aadhaar bill as a money bill and bring about all kinds of changes, or can you include in a finance bill, other than the budget, can you include other provisions? In the finance bill 2017, if you look at, there are many many issues that have nothing to do with the money bill. So in December, we'll go back to December. December, it was a very it's a tight fight. Again, September 2016, the committee constituted to look into the RPW.
Sir, voice is not properly audible.
Oh, sorry.
It's very low. Volume is very low, sir.
अभी अब पहले से जी अभी लो है और पहले से भी ऐसा है. Is it low now or is it low from the beginning?
No, sir, we can hear you properly.
It's
Yeah,
both.
you are audible. You are
Yes,
audible,
sir. You
Annapuram
are
sir.
audible, sir.
Okay. Yeah, but I have
You are audible. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay,
Yes, sir. You are audible.
thank you so
No,
much.
no
Thank you.
problem.
Okay. Now we're coming back. So December, so you don't have a bill. Therefore, again the same almost gets reversed. The committee submits a bill on RPWD, and now it was actually tabled in the parliament, but not sure if it would be passed. This time is another group, not Anuradha Mode's group. Another group goes to the Congress. This time, now the tables have changed. At that point of time, the BJP was in power. In 95, it was BJP in opposition. Now it is Congress. This group went to the Congress, said, please give your vote in Rajya Sabha. Unless you pass it, it is not going to happen. Then they started mustering the Congress. They said, आपने तो 95 एक्ट लाया, आपने तो UNCRPD का सिग्नेचर किया, आप ही तो कमिटी बनाया था 2011 में, ये तो पूरा आपका है, आप क्यों ना सपोर्ट करेंगे? So morally, they were also thought, okay, this is to do with बिचारे disabled के लिए है. That's how, if you go back to the bill history, the RPWD bill was first tabled in the Rajya Sabha, not in the Lok Sabha. Generally, bills are tabled in the Lok Sabha, sent to the Rajya Sabha then. But in this case, RPWD bill, December 14, it was tabled in the Rajya Sabha because they wanted to make sure, they didn't want to be fooled. They said, okay, let them pass first. Anyway, Lok Sabha, we have a majority. So they tabled it in Rajya Sabha first. Some discussion happens, and then it comes back to the Lok Sabha, and Lok Sabha passes the bill. It's very interesting how disability bills, the legislations in this country, are passed. And this seems to be a logic of social legislation. Sometimes the social legislations like this can go above the politics, right? So if you are students looking at the parliament legislations, policies, don't just look at what are the provisions in the policy. That's how we do most of the time, right? What is this policy? What does this provision say? And how is it interpreted? That is good. But you should also go beyond that and look at how that policy has been brought into by the legislation. How was it debated in the legislation? What was the opposition doing and what was the ruling party doing? Because social policies have a long history of a political battles. Unlike money bills and other corporate company bills, social legislations like this have a very different history. I'm only talking about the RPWD bill. There are many such, you will find many such very interesting incidents with social legislations to do with the social change, RPWD, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, women. Look at the women bill, right? I don't want to go into how the women bill, pending for decades, 3 decades. When does it get passed? In a new parliamentary building, right? So new parliamentary building is inaugurated by a bill, by passing an act that doesn't come into effect. You pass the bill as an act, but is not implemented right away. That is a provision within that act. So social legislations have a long history, and the way they are passed in itself is very peculiar. And persons with disabilities, rights of persons with disabilities act is only one example. And that takes me back to Article 14, which is the concluding point for me. Interestingly, RPWD Act was not passed under Article 14 or under Article 21. It could have well been passed as part of Article 38 or 39. No. RPWD Act bill is passed under Article 253. Article 253 gives the power to the Parliament to make a law in honor of any international convention the India has signed. When a country signs any international convention, the Parliament can pass a legislation honoring that commitment. So interestingly, the RPWD Act 2016 is passed under Article 253, not under Article 14 or Article 21. Of course, that doesn't mean that we cannot claim for equality under Article 14 or 21 protection of life. But I'm just telling you how the political sequence, the choices we make. Right? So the RPWD Act is given effect according to Article 253. Of course, because we have signed, we are a signatory to the UNCRPD. Therefore, we are doing this in honor of that commitment. So, Article 253 comes into effect. This is also a very interesting strand of social legislation. And I think it's a long history. We can go on, but I would stop because I want you to ask me. We want to have some discussion. And thank you very much for being such a great audience. And once again, thank the organizers for having this. Thank you so much. And I would stop here.
Thank you so much, sir. It was quietly lively, interactive, and interpretative session with rich inputs, and it was really a great privilege to hear you for all this while. We all have learned a lot from this session, even though we are having some knowledge in the field of law, but you gave a very panoptic view of the things. So we are really thankful to you, really grateful to you, and I am optimistic that our learners will use this knowledge in the coming days in their daily life, and also fulfill the social responsibility of being responsible Indian citizens in the coming days. And I open the floor for discussion now. And there are certain floor rules which we will like to abide. That is, whosoever speaks will introduce himself or herself with his name. Then we will not speak if others are speaking. And we will not repeat any questions that is already asked by somebody. So we open the floor for discussion. Dear learners, you can raise any questions if you have. Any queries, any suggestions, opinion, if you have, please give.
Sir, I am Harmohan Das. I am a student of MSc CFT. And sir, my query is, sir, autism is also now included in a disability. Sir, autism per se is permanent, which is till date what I know is it is incurable as per the doctors. But when the certificates are issued, disability certificate are issued, they are for temporary 3 months, 3 years period. So, sir, is there any law that when the disability is permanent, the certificates issued also should be permanent?
Thank you for that question. One issue is you're right. Autism is permanent, but autism can increase, and at the same time, if the right therapies are given, autism can also be brought down. So one of the things the doctor says, what if autism goes down below 40% as per their calculations? They have some parameters. So what if somebody goes through a very good therapy, gets a good treatment, and then probably after 3 years, your autism might go down 40%. In which case we cannot give you the permanent. So I think in many of course, if the autism is very severe, they are giving permanent certificates, but in most other cases, they are not. Many cases, they are not. The explanation is autism can always be treated with a therapy, not in the sense of curing it, but bringing it down below 40%. So if somebody comes down below 40%, then he will not be a person with benchmark eligibility category. So that is the explanation the doctors always provide.
Any other query?
Sir, I'm again here. I wanted one more question I had. Sir, generally now there was a circular, there was some notification from or a judgment from Supreme Court, and what happened was, after which the quotas for there is a reserve, there's a part reserved for uh, physically handicapped people in all the government jobs. Now, what I have seen is there are some jobs in which this reserved category is not represented, as it clearly says that, say for example, in defense services, it is clearly noted that if your eyesight is not 6/6 correctable by LASIK operation, you are not eligible. Similarly, in police also, if you are in IPS or police services, if you are not physically fit, means physically handicapped, who are motor disabilities, are not taken. Sir, debarring them completely may be a problem, because what happens is there are some jobs even in police department which are clerical in nature. Similarly, many a times it is stated that no history of mental illness. In eligibility criteria, we see this. So if that happens, then definitely there are possibilities that there can be difficulties if a physically handicapped person with a specific disability is stopped from entering a service. So what I'm saying is, how can is there any mechanism, or is there any way that people with physical disabilities, if these kind of restrictions are put in the advertisement for recruitment, can they go and challenge it anywhere?
Okay.
I would like to respond to your question. In fact, there are certain functions which are difficult to be carried out by the disadvantaged people from these categories. For instance, in Indian Railway Traffic Service, as you rightly said, Indian Police Service, as you rightly said, there are certain impairments which will prohibit you, which will restrict your functionality in the field.
Agree, sir.
Okay, we'll do. We'll go by law. Mr. Das, what the law? You're right. This case about the IPC came to Supreme Court in 2023.
Sir.
Somebody wanting to apply for IPS. Actually, interesting is he applied for IPS. He got civil services, and he was also eligible for IPS. A locomotor disabled, not completely locomotor, but some 45%. He came to the Supreme Court, said, I am falling under IPS. Why should I not be eligible? Interestingly, again, Chandrachud bench said, why are you refusing people with disabilities from prohibiting people with disabilities from IPS? Said exactly, the Supreme Court said what you are saying, that there are all IPS positions are not line duties. There are many positions which are desk based. So as of now, the Supreme Court, the case is still going on. It is an ongoing case, but as on date, IPS, even locomotor disabled, are eligible as per the standing order of the Supreme Court. Now, what if an advertisement says the same is happening with the medical, the doctors? In this case, NEET exam, there are cases year after year, but Supreme Court has very clearly said you cannot deny. Even in the last year NEET, there was somebody with 85% locomotor disability, physical disabilities. And he was eligible, he was getting a good score. The Supreme Court again, this time reprimanded the government and said, you have to take him, because if he has performed well in the exam, give him a chance. Let him do the MBBS first. We will decide later what to do. So I think courts have been very, very positive. But let me tell you the mechanism. When some advertisements say that this post is not meant for people with disability, there are two ways of doing it. First is government of
Okay.
India has published a long 2,500 page list of identified posts for various disabilities. This is on the website of the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. Sorry, there's a long name. depdwd.gov.in. You will find that list. The
Sir,
first thing,
sir,
yeah,
I'll note it down, sir.
dupd.gov.in. When an advertisement comes, if you see any of these things, first you have to go and check in that list if this position is identified for persons with disabilities. Almost all positions are mentioned in that very long order. You check there. Many times the government of India departments are playing a game. We often find it. Very recently it happened with the Ekalavya schools. A teacher post is identified for all disabled, but the advertisement said no, PWD people are not eligible. The people had to go to the court. The court then again reprimanded them to take them. Now they took it. Just last April, they gave the orders. So first thing you have to do is go and check in the DEPDWD list of identified posts if it has been really excluded or identified by somebody or not. Second, as per RPWD Act Section 21, if any government establishment completely wants to exempt from the purview of the 4% reservation, it has to take a prior permission from the government. Now, all the posts, all the establishments completely exempted from the government based on their requests are again put on the DEPWD notification page. The notification page they have listed out. I have, at least when I saw it in June, there were 5 or 6 departments: the income tax department, police department, army. They have clearly mentioned what kind of posts are completely exempted from the rule of reservation, and also people with disabilities are not eligible to apply. Again, this is another list you have to go and check whenever you find an advertisement, and if the advertisement says people with disabilities cannot apply. If you don't find it in the exempted list, then you are free to go directly file a case in CCPD. If it is a central government, if it is a state government, file a case in SCPD, State Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities of the concerned state. Of course, if the concerned state doesn't have a SPD, SPWD, then you go to the CCPD. That's actually the rule, right? So you're right. Many times the government or departments play a very dirty game. So you have to check these two places. One is the exempted list. The other one is list of identified posts.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. It was really quite enlightening. If there is any other
Thank you,
question,
sir.
you welcome.
Sir, if you don't mind, can I ask one more small question? One more small question, if your time permits, sir.
Please.
Sir, it is regarding the sir. Nowadays, autism is on a rise, and sir, what is happening is in private schools, sir, under RTE, Right to Education, these kids with autism and other neuroatypical kids should get this opportunity under 4% reservation for them.
Right.
So, sir, what is happening is in private schools, which are highly, where the cost of education is high, how to actually enforce it means in case somebody goes like say there if a person is a parent to a autistic child and now he wants to get his child admitted in these schools. As per RTE quota, they have to take 1/4 of the students in under RTE. But if they deny, then sorry, our seats are full now.
Yeah, that is one big problem. Even Delhi schools, because that is coming under the 20% or whatever, 1/4 of the seats for to go to. But now, unfortunately, schools are deciding which 1/4 should, whom that to whom that 1/4 should go. Unfortunately, so when parents go and ask, then they're exactly saying yes, they are already filled up. As of now, unfortunately, we don't have a mechanism, but ideally people with autism and other disabilities should be included as part of the RTE. But my suggestion is, uh, whenever there is a child with autism or any other, even ADHD, instead of looking for the famous schools, and unfortunately the kids are not treated well, look for a school that has a good trained special teacher to teach these kids, people who have done diploma in autism. You should really find out. Sometimes these are not very big schools. What really matters for these autistic children is a good teacher, not really big school. If there can be a good teacher at least up to the 6th standard, a child can really be shaped. So a lot of my friends, uh, so there are some schools, good schools but not so high-fied schools, who are actually hiring trained teachers and providing in a good space for autistic children. We should really join our kids in those schools so that their formidable years will not be wasted. Otherwise, many times we're joining in the schools, but they don't have trained teachers. They really don't teach it. I think that should be our approach.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any other query, please? So, sir has given us very precious insights today, which will be helpful to us and many of us in our daily lives. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And it was not only a discourse in law, it was a discourse in citizenship, it was a discourse in social policy, and it was a discourse in humanity. So thank you so much, sir. It was really very enlightening and it will be helpful for many of us in our daily life, particularly those who are disabled themselves or those who are parents of disabled or siblings of disabled people. So I'm quite uh, hopeful that your today's discourse will be quite helpful to all of us. Thank you so much. May I now request my colleague Dr. S.K. Paningrai sir to kindly offer the vote of thanks. Thank you, Paningrai sir. Over to you.
Your microphone is on.
Thank you, Vimal sir. So I extend my heartfelt thanks to my dearest, my heartiest Annavaram sir. No doubt, I mean you are a friend and you are studying together in JNU, and he is one of the outstanding personality, and he is very humble and he is very submissive, and all that time is discussed with us in various issues like law, policy. I mean, so in the disabled sector, sir has enough, I mean, contribution to build a policy and how the disabled peoples get benefited out of the whatever the law. I mean, the government of India and the state government has introduced. So with this, I mean, 15, 17 years, and sir has enhanced his knowledge level. So I'm really thankful to you, sir. Out of all hurdles, despite of all problems, I mean, you reach sky heights. God will bless you, and definitely you will get success more in your life. So once again, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you, sir, for today's presence and enlightened us. about the disabilities issues. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Also, I extend my heartfelt thanks to my learners because regarding disabilities issues, hardly you are taking these topics in our any webinars. But this time we do feel that because definitely our learners should get enlightened toward the disability issues or the problems and issues whatever they are facing. So they should get the knowledge about that. So definitely with this house talks, I mean it will enrich your knowledge and definitely you will benefit out of this. And last but not least, I extend my heartfelt thanks to all my dear colleagues and my fellow participants. Thank you very much. Thank you once again, Yusuf.
The timer was left for meeting.
So thank you, sir.